Good morning, Year 2. Welcome to your Monday's guided reading lesson. Today we're going to continue reading Fantastic Mr. Fox. We're going to go on from chapter 13. So last week, Mr. Fox had a plan, and that plan was to keep digging until they reached Boggis's chicken house number 1, where they stole some chickens, and one of the small foxes took those back for Mrs. Fox, and then they met Badger. And we got introduced to the character of Badger, and Mr. Fox suggested that all the animals join the feast. And now we're on chapter 13, Bunce's Giant Storehouse. "My dear Foxy," cried Badger, "what in the world has happened to your tail?" "Don't talk about it, please," said Mr. Fox. "It's a painful subject." They were digging the new tunnel. They dug on in silence. Badger was a great digger, and the tunnel went forward at a terrific pace now that he was lending a paw. Soon they were crouching underneath yet another wooden floor. Mr. Fox grinned slyly, showing sharp white teeth. "If I'm not mistaken, my dear Badger," he said, "we are now underneath the farm which belongs to that nasty little pot-bellied dwarf Bunce. We are, in fact, directly underneath the most interesting part of that farm." "Ducks and geese!" cried the small foxes, licking their lips. "Juicy, tender ducks and big fat geese." "Exactly," said Mr. Fox. "And how in the world can you know where we are?" asked Badger. Mr. Fox grinned again, showing even more white teeth. "Look," he said, "I know my way around these farms blindfold. For me, it's just as easy below ground as it is above." He reached high and pushed up one wooden floorboard, then another. He poked his head through the gap. "Yes," he shouted, jumping up into the room above. "I've done it again. I've hit it smack on the nose, right in the bullseye. Come and look." Quickly, Badger and the 3 small foxes scrambled up after him. They stopped and stared. They stood and gaped. Oh, we had that word, gaped, in The Night Pirates last week. Remember it? It's where someone's going, and they can't believe their eyes. They were so overwhelmed they couldn't speak. For what they now saw was a kind of fox's dream. A badger's dream, a paradise for hungry animals. "This, my dear old Badger," proclaimed Mr. Fox, "is Bunce's mighty storehouse. All his finest stuff is stored in here before he sends it off to market." Against all the 4 walls of the great room, stacked in cupboards and piled up on shelves, reaching from floor to ceiling, were thousands and thousands of the finest and fattest ducks and geese, plucked and ready for roasting. And up above, dangling from the rafters, there must have been at least 100 smoked hams and 50 sides of bacon. "Just feast your eyes on that," cried Mr. Fox, dancing up and down. "What do you think of it, eh? Pretty good grab." Suddenly, as though springs had been released in their legs, the 3 hungry small foxes and the ravenously hungry Badger sprang forward to grab the luscious food. "Stop!" ordered Mr. Fox. "This is my party, so I shall do the choosing." The others fell back, licking their chops. Mr. Badger began prowling around the storehouse, examining the glorious display with an expert eye. If you're an expert, it means that you know something really, really well. So you're really good at doing something, or you understand something in lots of detail. A thread of saliva slid down one side of his jaw and hung suspended in mid-air, then snapped. "We mustn't overdo it," he said. "Mustn't give the game away, mustn't let them know what we've been up to. We must be neat and tidy and take just a few of the choicest morsels. So, to start with, we shall have 4 plump young ducks." He took them from the shelf. "Oh, how lovely and fat they are. No wonder Bunce gets a special price for them in the market. All right, Badger, lend me a hand to get them down. You children can help as well. There we go. Goodness me, look how your mouths are watering. And now, I think we'd better have a few geese. 3 will be quite enough. We'll take the biggest. Oh my, you'll never see finer geese than these in the King's kitchen. Gently does it. That's the way. What about a couple of nice smoked hams? I adore smoked ham, don't you, Badger? Fetch me that stepladder, will you, please?" Now, you might have noticed that as I was reading that, I kept pausing, so I kept having a little break in my reading. And the reason that I was doing that is when you look at how it's written, it's got, if you can see, it's got lots of little bits of 3 dots. Now, this is called ellipsis, okay? And what you do when you see that, when you're reading, you have a little short break, okay? And the reason that Roald Dahl has put these in here is because Fantastic Mr. Fox is really thinking about what things he wants to take. He's thinking really carefully, and there's little pauses in what they're doing. So that's why I kept pausing, and that's what those little dots mean. Mr. Fox climbed up the ladder and handed down 3 magnificent hams. "And do you like bacon, Badger?" "I'm mad about bacon," cried Badger, dancing with excitement. "Let's have a side of bacon, that big one up there." "And carrots, Dad," said the smallest of the 3 foxes. "We must take some of those carrots." "Don't be silly," said Mr. Fox. "We know we never eat things like that." "It's not for us, Dad, it's for the rabbits. They only eat vegetables." "My goodness me, you're right," cried Mr. Fox. "What a thoughtful little fellow you are. Take 10 bunches of carrots." Soon all this lovely loot was lying in a neat heap on the floor. The small foxes crouched close, their noses twitching, their eyes shining like stars. "And now," said Mr. Fox, "we shall have to borrow from our friend Bunce 2 of those useful push-carts over in the corner." He and Badger fetched the push-carts, and the ducks and geese and ham and bacon were loaded onto them. Quickly the push-carts were lowered through the hole in the floor. The animals slid down after them, back into the tunnel. Mr. Fox again pulled the floorboards very carefully into place so that no one could see they had been moved. "My darlings," he said, pointing to 2 of the 3 small foxes, "take a cart each and run back as fast as you can to your mother. Give her my love and tell her we are having guests for dinner. The badgers, the moles, the rabbits and the weasels. Tell her it must be a truly great feast, and tell her the rest of us will be at home as soon as we have done one more little job." "Yes, Dad, right away, Dad," they answered, and they grabbed a trolley each and went rushing off down the tunnel. Okay, so in that chapter they went into Bunce's storehouse, didn't they? So your questions are going to be, they're on the home learning plan, your questions are going to be, what did they take from Bunce's storehouse? Why does the small fox want to take carrots? Who says they really like bacon? And why did Mr. Fox put the floorboards back carefully? Okay, off you go.